Before we get to the video, I want to say that I am a kindergarten teacher here in San Antonio, Texas, and I have not had my hair cut since October of 2019. And in order to raise money for the San Antonio Food Bank, my kindergarten class is going to cut my hair. I'm giving them scissors, and I'm going to let them do whatever they want to do. This is on June 1st. We have a website up. If you can donate to the San Antonio Food Bank, you can donate as little as $5 or as much as you can afford. If you are able to in these difficult times, that would be appreciated. But the link is right there. There are. I will be posting pictures of the haircut and, of course, probably still making videos, so you'll get to see it here on this channel. But if you are in a position in your life where you can afford to donate to the San Antonio Food Bank, because people always need food, and they have been sort of understocked during these COVID times, every dollar goes directly to them. So that is the link. Thank you very much. And that's it. Now on to the video. Hello, thanks for watching. My name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie. Before I jump into the video, if there's a couple weird edits in this next little video, it is because it is another hot Texas night. If I start singing Cracklin' Rosie, or if there's weird edits, it's because I can't run the air conditioner when I film these because it gets too loud. So I'm going to stop and take a break if sweat starts breaking out of my head. Also, in 5 days, I may lose all of my hair, so I want to remember what it looks like. Raising money for the San Antonio Food Bank to let my, because or as or in conjunction with my kindergarten class cutting my hair. That happens in 5 days from this video. So I'm hoping to make at least 1 or 2 more videos before that happens. But if not, this is the last time I looked pre-COVID-y. Okay, I don't know what that means. Anyways, on to the discussion. I am currently ranking and reviewing every single Frank Zappa album released after he passed away in December of '93. And out of the 55, I am now on number 13, Halloween 73. This was released in 2019. It was a 4 CD set that featured the 2 Halloween shows from 1973, an early and a late show. Those took up 3 discs, and then there was a 4th disc of excellent rehearsal material. The 4th disc is a little bit of what pushes this, I think, higher than the Roxy performances, which was ranked as number 14. These 2 releases essentially document the same tour, but on complete opposite ends. So the Halloween shows are essentially the 5th and 6th shows of the fall 73 tour. There were 4 shows in Texas, then you had these 2 Halloween shows. The Roxy performances, those shows are essentially the 4 last penultimately -2. So there are 2 shows after that, but they are the 7th, 6th, the 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd shows, right? So you get these bookending experiences of the exact same band. And I think over the course of that 6-week span, it kind of, same material. Oddly enough, Frank complains in the Halloween 73 on the 2nd show that he's like, hey, we're running out of tunes. This band's only been together for a short period of time. We don't have a lot of stuff, so we're going to repeat some of the stuff we played in the first show. But then by the time they get to the Roxy performances, they've already dropped a couple tracks. And so they're playing with less material in Roxy, and it's 4 shows instead of 2. So interesting little side note. It's essentially a very weird snapshot of the same band in 2 really incredibly different moments. So first, this is the band. It is the band that's like the core of this band would be George Duke and Tom Fowler, essentially, because they were in the band for 73 and all of 74, which I think are by far the 2 best years Frank ever had. Fall 74 being the absolute best. So George Duke was on keyboards and vocals, Tom Fowler on bass. For most of 73, you had Ruth Underwood on percussion. She was in almost all of those bands other than the May 74 version. You had Bruce Fowler on trombone. He had been there all for 73. You had Ralph Humphrey on drums. He had been there all of 73. And for this tour, you now have Napoleon Murphy Brock joining them, and he would stick around all the way through 76. And Chester Thompson, who would stick around through 74. So that's who you have in this incredible band. And so at the Halloween shows, it's in Chicago. It's in a very rowdy venue. It's Halloween night. Maybe either because of the mix or just because of the band itself, the fact that they now had three percussionists and we're trying to figure out exactly, how to like make that work in a live setting. There's a slightly more chaotic energy to a lot of the drum parts, not like misplayed or they're messing up, but just like the vibe they're going for early is let's emphasize every drum instrument we have and really just like force the drumness. And it puts some songs, especially the instrumentals, I think Dog Breath and Don't You Ever Wash That Thing, just have a percussion heaviness, almost recklessness, but at the same time, purposeful recklessness that by the time you get to Roxy, the Roxy shows are just smooth. Yeah, there's a lot of percussion going on and there's a lot of things happening, but like it is still tight and smooth and efficient and just like everybody's having a good time and it's relaxed and it's in a nightclub. Like those Roxy shows are just like, effortless. Where this has still kind of a rawness or maybe the excitement of Halloween and being in Chicago. But there's something about the two shows, just a slightly different feel that I think influences just the vibe, Frank's solos, the energy, it's the newness of the drummers working together. But that's one of the reasons why I ranked this higher than the Roxy shows. I just think it is overall a slightly more energetic, infused with some sort of edgier vibe than you get by the time you get to Roxy, which is also a phenomenal, release. That was number 14. The other thing about this is you could have called this Halloween 73 : The Hook, because the hook is all over this in the best way possible. So the hook first occurred in Farther Oblivion when it was in 72. It's the part in the bebop tango section which goes dun 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 ba ba dun 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 ba ba, or some approximation of those notes I just tried to sing. Frank explains it explicitly a little more in the Road Tapes Venue 2, which I have yet to review. Once Bebop Tango was pulled out of Farther Oblivion, it became its own song. In that case, it was actually during Farther Oblivion. But Frank talks about the hook. And even though it was that part of music in Bebop Tango that was supposed to represent the hook on like deep psych albums that have like this pop number that is nevertheless the thing that draws you to the album, the hook. It obviously then became a hand signal because Frank would use it during solos. He used it a lot during a lot of George Duke solos. He'd have the band do the dun 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 dun, and then George would go off soloing again. It eventually became the segue between Montana and Dupree's Paradise. They would finish Montana, the band would do dun 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 dun, 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 and then George Duke would start his improv thing. But in this show, it first appears during Don't You Ever Wash That Thing, and they do what is essentially the hook jam. They like play that like over and over again. Then it pops up again where it's supposed to, and then it pops up in all these different solos. There's a Magic Fingers on the rehearsal tapes. It pops up in that. It is just all over the place. And there is an incredibly sublime moment in Dupree's Paradise in, I think it's George's opening part when he's doing his just like keyboard solo. And Frank has the band do the hook once. And then he has what sounds like, I think it's only like Tom Fowler and maybe Bruce Fowler doing it. So while the band is still kind of being a little chaotic, right underneath it, you hear this boom, 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 boom. And it is just his messing around, Frank's like use of this device and this like hand signal and inserting it all over this. I think it's only in like 5 or 6 different songs, but the effect of it is pretty like, I think, dramatic. You remember the hook. You will know what the hook is by the end of listening to this CD. You can't avoid it. But it's just really neat. It reminds me of Fish, where Fish would like, early in a jam or a solo, Trey would like reference a song or quote one of their own songs or another songs. And then later on, they'd go back to that and quote it again. And then sometimes they'd even play a verse of it, just that like repeated use of a motif, kind of a secret word, but a musical secret word. It becomes that. The hook becomes the secret word of these discs, a musical secret word. And it's a really neat effect. It's one of those reasons why I got into collecting shows and collecting live tapes, and why I think the ZFT can release as many complete live concerts as they want, because it's Frank and because it's one of those bands that does improv. There are moments in certain shows that are never ever repeated in other shows, and you're never going to know about it unless you get that show. Yes, the hook was a pretty common thing to use, especially in this tour, pretty much only in this tour, and then through 74. But to see it here and just the fun they're having with it, it's a really neat moment. So yeah, that's it. So I think that's all I have to say about it, but it's great songs. This band is phenomenal. Again, I think I've pointed out the things. This is the songs. These are the things that are going on. And there's a couple reasons why I think it's better than the Roxy performances. Is I think all of Frank's solos are better. And I think sort of the standout moments of each show, the things that have improv or, solos, the I'm the Slime, Big Swifty, the Montana Dupree's, I think each of those is a little bit better and a little bit edgier on the Halloween show than they would be on Roxy's, which is why this goes up a little higher. Plus, I think they split the votes. If only the Roxy performances had been released, I think that would have been ranked higher than 14, closer to number 1. And if only this had been released, this definitely would have been ranked higher than 13, and I think would have been higher than the Roxy performances. But because they duplicate so many of the same songs and it is the same band, I think as far as like what I listen to and how I would rank it as something I go back to, they kind of slip because they're each pretty much filling the same need, kind of. But anyways, here's what you get. The first show opens up with 3 very standard. He played like these modules, essentially, of songs, right? Where once you knew this one, if he started with this one, you knew these next 3 or 4 were coming. So you get a lot of that here. So the first sort of module that you get is Pygmy Twilight, Idiot Bastard Son, Cheapness. Pygmy Twilight is pretty much just the Pygmy Twilight. There's no dummy up in it. The solo's not really very long. It's just a short little Frank thing. Then you get the next module, which is 2 songs that were dropped by the time they got to Roxy. Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue, Kung Fu. Then you get Penguin in Bondage, To Mercy Dwayne, Dog Breath Variations, Uncle Meat, and Redunzel. All great performances. This is one of those runs where you can kind of hear the chaoticness of the drums a little more, I think, where that really stands out. Then you get another module. You get Village of the Sun, Echidna's Arf of You, and Don't You Ever Wash That Thing. And one of the great things about Village of the Sun is early at this point in the tour, there was this really cool little intro that they did that was like almost like the theme song to a 70s show. Like, I don't know if anybody out there has seen Three's Company with that intro when they're riding their bikes down the beach in Venice Beach. The intro could go over that. It's just like this I'm singing it wrong, but it's this very very upbeat, kind of happy, not jaunty, but definitely riding your bike down the beach during sunset. And then that goes into Village of the Sun. And it's a great intro. It's really neat. The only thing where it kind of loses a little of its power is they return to that intro at the end of it after the song like typically ends. And then you get the dun 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 dun, and then that kind of ends, and then they go into the Echidna's Arf, the dun dun dun, and there's a less immediate jump into Echidna's Arf, and you lose a little bit of momentum there. So even though it starts off stronger, when they return to it at the end, I'm like, oh no, I wish they had just gone right into Echidna's. But it's still a neat little twist, and I think it's a better version than the Roxy version, just because that intro is pretty cool. And then you get a Don't You Ever Watch That Thing, a really good Don't You Ever Watch That Thing. The hook is in this. Hook is in this all over the place. There's a lot of stuff going on in this Don't You Ever Watch That Thing. It's like almost 10 minutes long. It's fun. Don't You Ever Watch That Thing is one of those really weird songs where sometimes Frank kind of did a lot with it at the end, and sometimes the drummers played and then it kind of ended. So this is one of the better versions of that song. Then you get, the only thing that really kind of frustrates me about this box is the next 2 songs, because one of them is the last song on the first disc and the other one is the first song on the next disc, and it is a break that should not have happened. But you get a Montana, really nice Frank guitar solo, and that goes, of course, right into Dupree's Paradise, nice 20-minute version of that with a nice George Duke intro. I think there's a Napoleon solo, a Fowler solo. There's a Frank solo, of course. I think, yeah. I mean, it's just a great Dupree's Paradise. I mean, it's just, this is one of those songs that they could release every single Dupree's from the Fall 73 tour, and I would listen to every one of them, and it would probably be an amazing release. This is that song from this tour. You know, this is the one you want to hear, and this is a really good version of it. And as I said in the Roxy Performances tape, is that the solos for Frank during this tour were really a lot of just very in the pocket, as a comment had made on the previous one, very integrated into the band. In Dupree's Paradise was really the only time when he kind of pushed the issue a little bit and tried to explore, but never in really dramatically aggressive ways, but just kind of uncomfortable ways. And again, he does that here. It's just, I don't know, there's a quality to these solos. It's an understated aggression that's not aggressive. I don't know, I'm rambling, but I really like these solos, and this, of course, is another good one. That ends the main set, and then the encore is Dickie's Such an Asshole. And that is the end of the first show. And now I'm going to pause, turn the air conditioner on for a couple minutes, and then be right back. All right, and now we're on to the second show. The second show starts off with the Cosmic Debris, which is, you know, just a fun, good, loose Cosmic Debris. Nowhere near as good as the one that opens up the Roxy Performances disc, but Cosmic Debris nonetheless. Then Frank complains that we're hurting for tunes. Then we get a Pygmy Twilight, Idiot Bastard Son Cheapness. Again, then we get an I'm the Slime Big Swifty. These are both excellent. Again, really good Frank solos, a good George Duke solo in Big Swifty. Sounds excellent. These are easily two of the highlights of this entire set, and definitely are kind of up in the ante on this second show almost immediately. Like, just to have those, you know, come so early in a show and just throw that out there. It's a good meaty performance for 73. Then Frank throws in a Dickie's Such an Asshole right after that, middle of the set, not as an encore. And then they do Farther Oblivion, which is just great. I mean, it is fun, it is loose. It's divided into two parts because, once again, this is in this tour, Frank is starting to insert like Bruce and weird things during the bebop tango thing where there's dancing and stuff like that. So you get a little bit of that in there, but it's nowhere near as like over the top and just indulgent as it would be by the Roxy Performances. So I think it's a little more, one of the reasons, if I had to listen to a bebop tango, it would be here because there's less of the audience participation part. There's less of the visual element, which I can't see on a CD. Then we get a Penguin in Bondage, Tamershi Dween, and that goes into Redunzel. He calls that as an audible, and it's a really good Redunzel. And then they close out the main set with an Inca Roads. And then the medley is, interestingly enough, it is the same medley that closes out, I think, the second show of the Roxy Performances, but one of the shows of the Roxy Performances, the King Kong into Chunga's Revenge into Son of Mr. Green Jeans. Only at this point in the tour, it's Son of Mr. Green Jeans into King Kong into Chunga's Revenge. There's a nice little horn solo in Son of Mr. Green Jeans. King Kong, I think, has a couple solos. I forget who solos, sorry. And then a great guitar solo in Chunga's Revenge. I think at Duke it's the King Kong solo. But it's interesting that that would then be reversed by the time they get to the Roxy Performances, and there were actual couple performances in the middle of the year or in the middle of the tour where they didn't play Son of Mr. Green Jeans at all. They just went King Kong straight into Chunga's Revenge. And it's the fast King Kong, so right when they're done with Son of Mr. Green Jeans, they immediately jump into the like that, really upbeat. But if this is like a 16-minute performance, it's really long, it's really nice. There's a lot of quotes going on in the things. I think there's a hook maybe. I'm sure there's probably a hook somewhere in there. And that closes out the second show. Then we're on to the rehearsals. You get Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue, Penguin in Bondage, Tamershi Dween, Dog Breath Variations, Uncle Meat, Redunzel. Most of that stuff is all the way straight through. The Redunzel is really good. The guitar solo in that is pretty short, but also really kind of strange and really weird and really repetitive. And Frank's having a good time. Like these rehearsals, Frank's delivering short solos, but really tasty, good solos. And all of it sounds good. There's not a lot of stops in it. I think there's maybe a stop in Penguin. Penguin has a weird little part in the middle where they just kind of like, there's not really a guitar solo, but there's this added sort of instrumental aspect that's in there that's pretty cool. But it sounds great, and the mix is a little bit different than the concert mix. So again, certain instruments kind of stand out, especially George Duke. I think he's a little more prominent in a good way in a lot of these. Then you get Magic Fingers, which they pretty much do it like the 200 Motels. Frank recites Howie's little monologue that's in there. He does a really nice solo in this. It's just great. That goes, it's about 5 minutes of that. The solo's really nice and tasty. The version is definitely not as sort of like lean and mean as the like 80 version would be, or that those later versions would be, but it also, it's a little clunkier than the Flo and Eddie version. It's almost like they didn't quite know how to find their funk in this song yet, and maybe they never did, which is why it never made set lists. But it would be neat to have seen this band had a chance to like work on it and kind of get a little more comfortable with it, or find their way of interpreting it, because it's just a great song and it should have been played more. Then you get Inca Roads. There's a lot of stops and starts in Inca Roads. I kind of skipped that. It's neat to listen to once, to hear them kind of talk through and go through it, but they work on that cocktail jazz lounge thing for a lot. So this kind of ruins the flow of that. Then you get the Farther Oblivion, which you get the first part, the Gregory Pecky part is run through all the way. They get to the bebop tango part. Here Frank is like, they redo this is bebop, even if you don't think it sounds like it. They do that over and over and over again. Frank's kind of changing things up every once in a while. Then that eventually goes into Dickie's Such an Asshole. Only it's the music of Dickie's Such an Asshole, and Napoleon is making up completely different lyrics about bebop and jazz and stuff like that. And so it is really interesting, because I don't think anywhere in that section, it's maybe a minute long, maybe a little over a minute, where they're just playing the parts that would come in Dickie's after the solo. They don't reference Dickie's Such an Asshole at all. You just get the music, but then later when the tour would start, Dickie's Such an Asshole is there. So I don't know which came first, the music, and then Frank took this music and just gave it different words, or the music and the song was already there and Napoleon was improvising over something Frank told them to play. But it is a really neat little moment in the end of Bebop Tango that, if it had stayed in Bebop Tango, that would have given that whole song as a standalone song a completely different vibe. Kind of would have channeled the closing jams into a different direction maybe, but it's still a really, really interesting listen. And then you get a Cosmic Debris, a pretty nice Cosmic Debris. They start and stop a couple times. So after that, they all solo and it finishes off strongly. And then it ends with like a big Swifty run through. They do the first half, the second half, and Frank gives pretty much just an obligatory solo, and then it's done. But it's a really interesting listen. And knowing that there aren't going to be any like just mind-blowing solos, it just sounds good. The mix is a little different. And the Magic Fingers and the Farther Oblivion, I think, are just like two of the things like make this purchase almost worth it. Maybe not for the casual listener, but if you're really into Frank, and you really want to just like hear different things that you're not going to hear anywhere else, I think the rehearsals have a little bit of that. And I didn't know about the Magic Fingers. I had been collecting tapes for a while, and that was something I don't think I knew existed. So when hearing this for the first time, it was quite a treat. But anyways, that's all I got to say. I really, really enjoy this. I think it's a great listen. I think it puts a very positive, like the 73 band was a little, Frank's solos, the fall 73 solos were a little anemic and a little too not stand outish. But I think in this early incarnation of the band, everything has a little bit of a raw edge and a little bit of more of a compelling draw. And as the tour would go on, they would just become so efficient and so ridiculously professional and good at what they do that the solos became, second nature to just the technical skills that they showed off in like Dogmeat and, all that other stuff. So Frank's solos are a little more taken notice in this, which I appreciate. But that's it. That's all I got to say. I'm going to turn the air conditioner back on. Hopefully I'll have number 12 up before I get this haircut on June 1st. And if you are in a position to donate, I'll put the link in the comments, and plus the URL was in the beginning of the video. That would be awesome. Raising money for the San Antonio Food Bank. But that's it. Take care. Love to know what you think about this album I love it when people buy these albums and let me know that I was somewhat accurate in my description or they appreciated it. So I take notes. I want to get this right. Since people are actually going out and like acquiring this music, I want to make sure I give a true representation of what is on there. Even though I'm completely biased towards things 73 and 74. I'll make that clear. All right. Take care. Thanks. Peace. Bye.